Good morning, it's Maudi here, and today I am very lucky because we have a very special guest, a beautiful, young, and talented singer-songwriter who will share about her music journey. Please welcome Laufey.
Every damn second you're with me. I will stop falling in love with you. When I talk to you, oh Cupid walks right through and shoots an arrow through my heart.
Hi Laufey, how are you?
Good.
Right, so where are you currently right now?
I'm in Paris right now, so I'm quite happy.
Right, Laufey, first and foremost, I would just like to congratulate you on your first Grammy nomination this year for Best Traditional Pop Vocal Album. I think that's just impressive because you've got nominated alongside esteemed artists like Bruce Springsteen and Liz Calloway, right?
Yeah, it's very, very crazy. It's definitely a category that a lot of my idols have been in, and it feels very special to be like a little Gen Z part of that.
And what significance does this recognition hold for you?
I mean, it is the highest kind of form of validation that you can get as a musician. It's especially, I started making music it kind of started on the internet, and it was almost like a project between me and my fans in the beginning. It's like very much been between me and my community, and obviously because of the pandemic, the first 2 years were like almost entirely just online. And to have validation from the Grammys, something that feels like it's lasted longer than the internet. It's been longer than the internet. It's the history and the artists that have been nominated and won Grammys are it's just legends. So it's just the highest form of validation, and it feels like a win for also the kind of music I make, and it feels like a win for Gen Z as well.
Right, so I personally think that your music journey has been remarkable, and I think the Grammy nomination itself is well deserved. And you also managed to establish yourself as the foremost jazz musician on Spotify. So that's amazing, and it's only been 4 years, wasn't it, since your debut?
My first single ever came out almost 4 years ago now. Yeah, April 2020. And then my first proper EP came out March 2021.
So in just the course of 4 years, I think it's just amazing. I believe that it requires you a hard work in order to achieve such a milestone within just the 4 years. So can you share with us a little bit of your secret to reach that milestone?
I think it's having a really good team is important, and definitely a lot of consistency and discipline. I think like hard work. I think especially in the past 2 years, I've put a lot of energy into, traveling, going to different countries, different cities, now that, there's no longer COVID, actually getting FaceTime with the fans, doing secret projects. I also think it's just about relating to the fans. It's about understanding the fans. Like, my fans are so similar to me that it's easy, but speaking to them, I don't think of them as, some sort of, I don't really think of them as my fans. Like, I think of it more as just my community, and I receive just as much from them as they receive from me, in that I receive like a lot of feedback from them, but I think it's consistency, a lot of hard work, and having something unique to offer. Lean into that something unique, and don't be scared of being humiliated, I think.
Right, so that's it. As a musician, it's just really important to build a connection with your fans, right?
Yeah.
And
That's the whole part, because you can't operate without your audience, you know? It's a two-person job, you know? I mean, you can always be a musician and just, you know, play for yourself, and that's, you know, that's what I was for the first 21 years of my life. But the fans are, you know, they're a part of the equation, I think.
Yeah, and I saw some of your fans on TikTok and Instagram Reels. They've been posting about you, and I could see that they're just so fond of you, right? And speaking about fans, as Indonesians, we also had the pleasure of having you here in Java Jazz Festival back in July, and you know, huge enthusiasm, huge excitement from the fans, and you also had that itinerary tour called a very Laufey-Day, right? In Indonesia.
Yeah.
And Indonesia is the only country that you chose in Southeast Asia,
Yeah.
right? So can you share with us your sentiments with Indonesia and why you decided to choose Indonesia as the only country in Asia?
Well, first of all, a lot of I'll get to that later. Probably the craziest concert I played in 2023 was the concert in Jakarta. Like, it was so amazing. It was my first time in Jakarta, first time in Indonesia, and to have that was still to this day, like, one of the biggest concerts I've ever played. And it was all my fans, and they were all singing along, and it was so amazing. And like, when the concert started, like, they filled like the seats, and then they kept on letting people in, and then they just covered the entire floor and the entire back area as well. And the fans were so nice, and they were all singing along, and I ran into a lot of fans just out and about, and they're all so sweet, so many like little girls that just like had my entire heart, and so kind. Like, I can tell it's a very giving culture, very generous. There's also, and this is a big part of why I chose it for a very Louvy day, there's, you know, a big coffee culture, and I love coffee. So, and a big part of the very Louvy day was to have like a coffee drink, and I just had such fond memories from Indonesia, and have good friends from there, and wanted to give them a little something back for supporting me. So.
Yeah, that's just amazing. And we've talked about fans. Let's talk about your Bewitched album and tour, which is a massive success with so many sold out shows. I also saw in your Instagram post last week that you managed to have a sold out shows in more than 20 cities, I believe.
Yeah, it's been really wild. I don't know how that happened. But yeah, I put up the Goddess tour, which is like it's like an extension of the Bewitched tour, because I did the Bewitched tour this fall in the States, and then it sold out quite fast, so we put up another tour in the States in like theaters. And I was so nervous putting it up because the rooms are so much bigger than the last ones. And you know, so many iconic venues, like doing 2 nights at Radio City Hall in New York, and in London at Royal Albert Hall. Like, these are all venues that all of my idols have played, whether they're like, you know, pop musicians or jazz musicians or classical musicians. So yeah, it was really, really unbelievable. They all sold out in a couple of minutes as well.
That's amazing. Congratulations on that. Right, so can you elaborate on the transformation? You said that the concert halls are bigger than the last one, and so can you tell us, with this second album, what kind of growth that you've experienced?
I think I like to say my albums are like my journals, and every song is like a journal entry and a little anecdote from my life. And between every album, like, not only have I grown as a musician, but I've grown as a woman. So my experiences and how I see life transform with every album. And I think musically for this album, I just was so much more confident. The first album, I was like, I don't know if like my young audience is going to like this jazzy sound or this more classical sound. So I was playing a little bit more around with pop sounds. But then for the second album, I was like, okay, obviously like my fans are always with me. They want me to do what I want to do. So I just leaned fully into the songs that were kind of jazz leaning. I just made full jazz. Like we have jazz standards on there, recorded with a jazz quartet in a studio. Just did it properly. And then, you know, the songs that had more classical leanings, you know, we got an orchestrator and we recorded it with a symphony orchestra and just really leaned into that sound. So every you know, reference I had, I just kind of let myself lean into it, and I was like, let's just see what happens. And the fact that it went this well is just very surprising, and maybe just, you know, a sign that we should always lean into what we love the most and what makes us feel most like ourselves.
That sounds like an amazing process. So out of the 14 tracks, right, in your album, which one is your favorite?
It's so hard, right? They're all like my little babies. It's like choosing between your memories. I think I have a soft spot for California and Me, because I think that's the one that I worked the hardest on my own. I produced it on my own. I wrote it and worked very hard on the piano arrangement, then got my favorite orchestrator to orchestrate it. Then I flew over to London, sat in the studio and recorded it with the orchestra, and I was talking to the engineer, like running in between, like producing it, you know, talking to the conductor and making sure everything was the way that I wanted it to be. And I was so stressed, but the final product is just, to me, such a gem of that labor.
Right. So growing up surrounded by music, with your mother skilled in violin and your father passionate about jazz, when did you actually realize that you yourself want music to be a part of your life?
It's always so hard for me to answer that, because I think I always knew that music would be a part of my life. My mother's a violinist. My grandparents were also musicians, and I started playing, you know, taking lessons before I even can collect my memories, like when I was 4 years old. So I think it was always meant to be a part of my life. I think maybe when I started writing, when I was like 19 or 20, and all of a sudden I wasn't only playing music, but I was creating music. That's when I was like, wow, I really love this. And I was turning, you know, these things that were really difficult and you know, breaking my heart into songs, and I think into art, into something good. And I think that's when it kind of changed for me.
Right. So your songs, it resonates with the classic essence of jazz, which is, I mean, these days jazz is kind of hard to get across to the younger generation. So how do you actually ensure that your music remains relatable and accessible for a diverse audience, especially for the younger generation?
Yeah, I think it's a lot about the lyrics. It's two things. It's the lyrics, which is, you know, I'm telling a very modern story. I sing about my experiences in the same way as, you know, any other singer-songwriter would in this day and age, but my sound is a bit older. I think that's the first thing. And then second is presentation, right? I'm very much just a 24-year-old girl. I could be, you know, singing any kind of genre. I'm not, you know, I don't pretend like I come from a different decade. I don't think there's a better year to be alive as a woman. In fact, it's probably going to be better in the future. It still isn't perfect, but I think, you know, I use TikTok and Instagram to get to my audience, to show people my music, and those are very modern mediums. And I think newer audiences don't really care too much about the genre behind it, as long as they can relate to the artist and relate to the lyrics and the music in some way. So I think that's kind of, you know, the way I do it, at least.
Right, that's amazing. And as we approach the end of the year, which is just 2 weeks away, I think, so could you highlight the 3 songs that describe your 2023?
I mean, I wrote most of the songs off of Bewitched in 2023, so this will be easy. I'd say Dreamer. I'd start out with Dreamer. Very, you know, I've had big dreams this year, and kind of focused on myself in that way from the start. And it's my most popular song. It's the one that kind of kickstarted everything. So, but that's not the reason. I think it's very fast-paced and kind of cheeky. It's like my fastest-paced song, and I feel like this year has been very fast-paced. And then third is probably Promise.
Yeah, I love that one too.
As it's very heartbreaking.
It is definitely, the lyrics is just sad girl era.
It's one that I, find myself relating to again and again. Like I'll relate to it with one situation, and then that will be done, and then I'll relate to it with another situation. So
You wrote it just this year as well.
that one I actually wrote last year.
Oh, okay. So the two you wrote this year, and Promise was from last year. All right, amazing. So looking ahead to 2024, can we expect any surprise from you anytime soon? Perhaps another concert in Jakarta?
I wouldn't call you crazy if you expected that.
Okay, so that's a
I
hint.
can't say anything. Let me put it this way.
Okay.
I love Southeast Asia. I love the concerts there, and I love my fans there. So, and I'm not one to ignore the people I love. So.
Okay, we see there's a hint from Laufey, and that's it from me. And that's actually a nice ending, especially for the Indonesian and Southeast Asian fans. Thank you so much, Laufey, for your time. And I hope that the next time you come to Indonesia again, you get the chance to come to our studio.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Right, so that's Laufey joining us today. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned in C Morning Show.
Don't you notice how I get quiet when there's no one else around? Me and you and awkward silence. Don't you dare look at me that way. I don't need reminders of how you don't feel the same. Oh, the burning pain. Listening to you harp on about some new soulmate. She's so perfect, blah, blah, blah. Oh, how I wish you'll wake up one day. Run to me, confess your love. At least just let me say that when I talk to you, oh, Cupid walks right through and shoots an arrow through my heart. And I sound like a loon, but don't you feel it to confess I've loved you from the start. What's a girl to do? Lying on my bed staring into the blue. Unrequited, terrifying. Love is driving me a bit insane. Have to get this off my chest. I'm telling you today that when I talk to you, oh, Cupid walks right through and shoots an arrow through my heart. And I sound like a loon, but don't you feel it to confess I've loved you from the start.